They kicked Rajira out of town for helping an Apache warrior. But in just one day, 100 riders would show up to honor her. She didn't know that yet. She was kneeling next to a hurt man, her hands already red with his blood. The hot morning, sun burned down on the dusty main street of Cedar Flats. Rajira heard 3 loud gunshots bounce off the wooden buildings, then shouting and the sound of horses running. She was sweeping the porch of Murphy's store, her old dress flapping in the desert breeze. Then she saw him, an Apache warrior, stumbling between 2 buildings, holding his bleeding shoulder. His long black hair was messy with dust and sweat. His face showed pain, but his eyes were still strong. She heard Townsend's loud voice ordering his men, "Find that guy. He's hurt and can't be far." Rajira's heart was pounding. Everything told her to look away and act like she saw nothing. In Cedar Flats, the rule about Apaches was simple: shoot them, don't talk. But something in the man's eyes made her stop. For a quick moment, their eyes met, and she didn't see a monster like everyone said Apaches were. She saw a person who needed help. Blood dripped from his hand onto the dirt. Without thinking, Rajira dropped her broom and ran to him. She grabbed his good arm and pulled him behind the store, her mind racing. There was a tiny storage room back there where Murphy kept winter supplies. "Come on," she whispered, hoping he'd follow, even if he didn't understand her. The warrior, named Swift Eagle, though she didn't know that yet, stumbled along, breathing hard. Townsend's men were getting closer, their boots loud. On the wooden sidewalks, their voices growing sharper. Rajira pushed open the storage room door and helped Swift Eagle inside. It was small and dark, stuffed with sacks of grain and canned goods. She put a finger to her lips, hoping he'd know to be quiet. Outside, Townsend's voice sliced through the air. "Check every building. That guy's hiding somewhere." Rajira's hand shook as she ripped pieces from her petticoat to wrap Swift Eagle's wound. The bullet had gone straight through his shoulder, which was good, no bits to dig out, but he was losing blood fast, and his skin looked pale. She worked quickly, pressing the cloth on both sides of the wound to stop the bleeding. Swift Eagle watched her with deep, serious eyes, and she wondered what he was thinking. Why was she doing this? Why risk everything for a stranger her town called an enemy? Heavy boots stomped inside the store. Murphy's nervous voice said, "I didn't see anything, Mr. Townsend. Been in the back all morning." "Search it anyway," Townsend barked. "He's hurt bad and needs a hiding spot." Rajira pressed against the wall, her heart so loud she thought they'd hear it. Swift Eagle stayed still, his breathing soft but steady. Even hurt, he was tough. The footsteps got closer, boxes crashing as they searched. Rajira closed her eyes and hoped hard. But hope doesn't stop angry men with guns. The storage room door flew open, and Townsend stood there like a dark storm, his face red with anger. 3 men behind him reached for their guns. Well, Townsend said quietly. "Look what we found." Rajira stood slowly, stepping in front of Swift Eagle. She felt him tense behind her, ready to fight even though he was weak. "He's hurt, Mr. Townsend," she said, her voice calmer than she felt. "He needs a doctor." Townsend's laugh was mean. "A doctor? That guy killed 3 of our men last week at the Mitchell place. He deserves a rope, not help." "You don't know it was him," Rajira said, but she knew he wouldn't listen. "Doesn't matter," Townsend said, stepping closer with his men. "You helped the enemy girl. That makes you just as bad." The truth of what she'd done hit her hard. In Cedar Flats, helping an Apache was a huge crime. No forgiveness, no second chances. But as Townsend's men grabbed Swift Eagle and pulled him up, he looked at her with something like thanks in his eyes. Rajira knew she didn't regret it, not even a little. What she didn't know was that her kind act had started something big that would shake Cedar Flats to its core, because the woman they were about to throw out wasn't who they thought. And tomorrow, when 100 riders came to town, everything would change. The town square filled with angry voices as news spread fast. Rajira stood in the middle of a crowd that hated her, her hands still red with Swift Eagle's blood, facing people she'd known her whole life. Townsend paced like an angry dog, kicking up dust with his boots. The Apache was gone, probably locked. In the jail behind the saloon or worse. 23 years, Townsend shouted. This girl lived with us, ate our food, stayed safe with us, and this is how she pays us back. Martha Hemley, the preacher's wife, held her shawl tight. It's not right, she whispered loudly, helping one of those savages. Something's wrong with her. Ruggiero felt everyone staring, their anger hot. These weren't strangers. They were people who saw her grow up, shopped at Murphy's store while she worked, nodded to her on the street. Now, they looked at her like she was dangerous. I helped a hurt man, she said clearly. That's all. A hurt Apache who's been attacking us. Townsend yelled, his face red. That's not just a scratch on him, girl. That's from a fight with our people 2 hours ago. The crowd got closer, their faces hard. Ruggiero could smell their fear under the anger fear of Apache attacks that were getting worse. Fear their town wasn't safe. Doc Peterson stepped up, holding his medical bag. John, maybe we should. Don't start, Doc. Townsend snapped. You didn't see the Mitchell kids' faces after the raid. You didn't bury good men because of that guy and his friends. Ruggiero's throat felt tight. She hadn't heard about any new raids or violence. Living quietly, working. At the store, she'd missed the latest trouble. But even if she knew, she couldn't have left a bleeding man. That's not who she was, no matter what they thought. The punishment for treason is exile, Townsend said, his words heavy. You got 1 hour to grab what you can carry. Then, you leave Cedar Flats and never come back. The words hit like a punch. Exile meant death in the desert. Nobody survived alone with little supplies. But the crowd showed no kindness, no doubt. Murphy coughed nervously. Now, John, maybe. That's too much. You want to go with her, Murphy? Townsend's hand touched his gun. Want to tell your customers you hire Apache helpers? Murphy's face went white, and he backed off. No, sir. She's not with me anymore. That hurt more than Ruggiero expected. Murphy had been nice, giving her a job when she needed it. But kindness stopped when people were scared Dodd as the crowd left, happy with their justice. Ruggiero saw something scary. At the edge of the square, half hidden by the blacksmith's shop, stood Garrett Walsh, tall, thin, with sharp blue eyes that saw everything. He wore dusty clothes from a hard ride, his horse still panting nearby. Their eyes met, and he tipped. His had a small move, but it meant trouble. Then he slipped away into the shadows. Ruggiero's hand shook, not from exile, but because Walsh being here meant danger. Bad news was spreading to bad people. She had less time than she thought. As Townsend shouted orders to watch her leave, Ruggiero rushed to her tiny room behind the ways. Store, 1 hour to pack. 1 hour before they sent her to die. But as she stuffed her things into a bag, her fingers found something wrapped in cloth at the bottom of her trunk, something she never wanted to touch again. She unwrapped it slowly. A shiny silver badge, not a sheriff's star, but something bigger. It said, U.S. Federal Marshal. Ruggiero stared at it, remembering the power it gave her, the life she left behind to hide in this small town. She wrapped it up and put it in her bag. Then she checked the small gun hidden under her extra dress. 6 bullets. It had to be enough. Walsh's presence meant her past was catching up. And if she was right, Cedar Flats had just made a huge mistake. As Ruggiero walked into the desert, the sun high above, Cedar Flats got smaller behind her. Each step took her away from the home she'd known for 2 years. But she wasn't wandering like they thought. Every step had a plan. Every turn was on purpose. Her federal marshal training never left her. It was just waiting. 3 miles out, she found a spot she'd checked months ago when she first came to town, still thinking like someone who might need to hide fast. It was a bunch of red rocks. That made a secret shelter, invisible unless you knew where to look. Ruggiero sat in the shade, sipped water from her canteen, and thought about Denver, the case that ruined her career and almost killed her. The Castellano gang was selling guns to tribes, starting fights that killed settlers. She spent 8 months undercover, earning their trust, collecting proof. Then it all fell apart in one bloody night. She still saw Agent Morrison's face as he died in her arms. 3 other marshals died too, betrayed by someone who knew their plans. She barely got out alive. When it was over, her own agency thought she was the traitor, no proof. Just bad timing. They cut her loose, leaving her to face Castellano's revenge alone. So she vanished, took a fake name, Sarah Mitchell, and became a nobody store clerk in Cedar Flats. For 2 years, she almost believed it herself, but helping Swift Eagle changed everything. Her kind act got her kicked out, but also stirred up old connections she wanted to forget. Walsh being there meant those connections found her. A sound made her stop, the rumble of horses coming closer. She pressed against the rock and peeked. Out, 5 riders from town, riding fast with purpose. Townsend's big shoulders stood out. They weren't letting the desert kill her. They wanted to do it themselves. Ruggiero checked her gun, then piled dry brush and lit a match. Thin smoke rose. Straight up. A secret signal only someone looking would see. The riders were close now, spread out, searching. Townsend shouted orders, and she saw ropes. They planned to drag her back for a showy hanging. She closed her eyes and made a choice. She pinned the Federal Marshal badge to her vest. It felt strange after 2 years, but right. Then she used a small mirror to flash sunlight toward the mountains. 3 long flashes, 2 short, 3 long. The old signal for a marshal in trouble. If she was right, if her message reached her old contacts, help would come. But it might be too late. The horses got louder. Townsend's men saw her shelter. Ruggiero gripped her gun and waited. The scared girl from an hour ago was gone. Now she was a marshal with nothing to lose. But then she saw something worse, a 6th rider, staying back, watching. Garrett Walsh, making sure she didn't escape. The real danger wasn't Townsend's rope. It was Walsh and what he'd do to keep her quiet about Denver. Townsend's horse reared as a shot rang out, the bullet hitting the rocks near Ruggiero. She stayed low, counting their shots. 5 men with rifles, hiding behind their horses. "Come out easy, girl," Townsend yelled. "No need to make this tough." Ruggiero almost laughed. Tough? They came ready for war against one woman they thought was weak. If they knew the war they'd started, they'd run. She waited for them to reload, then shot the closest man in the shoulder. He screamed, fell off his horse, and his rifle hit the rocks. The others scrambled, realizing she wasn't helpless. "Where'd she learn to shoot?" one yelled. "Doesn't matter," Townsend shouted. "She's got 6 bullets, 5 now." Ruggiero smiled. She had more ammo, a knife on her thigh, and martial training to fight with her hands. Shots hit her rocks, sending chips flying. She stayed low, letting them waste bullets while she planned. The sun was dropping, shadows growing. Night would help her, but something felt off. The shooting was too planned, too smart for angry townsfolk. Someone was leading them. She peeked and saw Walsh closer, giving quiet orders to Townsend's men. His cold blue eyes met hers, and he smiled. That smile told her everything. This wasn't about the Apache, it was about Denver. Walsh was the traitor who sold out her team to Castellano. Now he was here to finish her. Anger filled her. Morrison, Davidson, Chun all dead because of Walsh's betrayal for Castellano's money. A bullet hit near her head, pulling her back to danger. Townsend's men were getting closer, ready to rush her. Then she heard it thunder, not from a storm, but from many horses coming fast. The sound grew, echoing off the canyon. Townsend's men heard it too. Their shooting slowed as they looked. Even Walsh looked worried. "What's that?" Townsend muttered. A huge man on a black horse appeared on the ridge, wearing a blue cavalry uniform. Then more riders came, filling the ridge. But Ruggiero saw they weren't regular cavalry. Their uniforms were too new, their horses too good. These were federal marshals dressed as soldiers. At their front was Marshal Samuel Hayes, her old boss, the only one who believed she wasn't the traitor. He sat tall, his face serious. "Federal Marshal Service," Hayes shouted. "Drop your weapons." Townsend's men looked confused, their guns shaking. They came to hang a traitor and faced 100 marshals. The choice was clear, but Walsh wasn't done. Ruggiero saw him reach for his gun, desperate. If she lived to talk about Denver, His life was over. He'd rather die than face justice. He's the one, Ruggiero yelled, pointing at Walsh. Garrett Walsh, the Denver traitor! Walsh drew his gun, aiming at Townsend, not her. He shot Townsend in the chest, then turned his horse to escape through the canyon. Ruggiero stepped out, aimed her pistol, and shot twice into Walsh's back. He fell off his horse, rolled in the sand, and stopped, face down. The desert went quiet, except for Townsend's heavy breathing and the horse's stomping. Hayes rode down, his men in perfect order. He looked at Ruggiero with respect. Marshal Castellanos, he said, using her real name after 2 years. Good to have you back. Ruggiero looked at her badge, feeling it differently. Not a heavy past, but a job to finish. Good to be back, sir, she said. But we need to talk about the Apache prisoner. Hayes raised an eyebrow. What about him? He's not just any Apache, Ruggiero said, figuring it out. He's been trying to tell the government about Castellanos' gun deals. Walsh wanted him dead to keep him quiet. Horses came from town, but not for a fight. Doc Peterson and Murphy led a group from Cedar Flats, including Martha Hemley. They looked ashamed, their horses sweaty from the fast ride. Marshal Castellanos, Doc called. We need to talk. Hayes watched them, hand on his gun, his marshals ready. Say what you need, Doc, Ruggiero said, her voice steady despite her mixed feelings. Peterson got off his horse, shaky. After you left, we got a telegram from Fort Collins about Walsh, about Denver, about who you really are. He held a crumpled paper. It says you're a hero marshal who went undercover to stop gun runners. You've been protecting towns for 2 years. Murphy stepped up, embarrassed. We also learned about the Apache. He's been carrying news about Castellanos' gang, trying to reach the law. Those raids we blamed him for? He was attacking Castellanos' supplies. Ruggiero felt both right and bitter. Swift Eagle wasn't hurting settlers. He was fighting the same enemy she was, but no one saw it because of prejudice. Where is he? She asked. Still in jail, Peterson said, but alive. We didn't know. Hayes stared at the townsfolk. Not knowing doesn't excuse almost killing a marshal and a key witness. We know now, Martha said softly. We came to fix it? Fix it? Ruggiero's anger burst out. You sent me to die because I helped a hurt man. You wanted to hang an Apache who's been protecting your families. How do you fix that? Her words hit hard. These people let fear and hate almost lead to murder. Their shame was real, but it couldn't undo the past. Hayes spoke up. First, we need Swift Eagle's information about Castellanos' plans. There's more, Peterson said. The telegram says Castellanos not just selling guns. He's planning something huge that could start a war between tribes and settlers. Ruggiero felt cold. She knew Castellano was smart and cruel. If he planned something big, it would be bad. What kind of war? Hayes asked. It's not clear, Murphy said, but it mentioned guns going to Apache land, enough for 500 warriors. Everyone understood. 500 Apaches, thinking they were defending their people against settlers who thought the tribes wanted to kill them all. It would be a disaster for years. If you were Ruggiero, would you trust the townsfolk who betrayed you to help stop this war, or work only with Hayes and his marshals? Tell me in the comments. Ruggiero's choice would decide if hundreds lived or died. We ride to town, Ruggiero said firmly. All of us. We free Swift Eagle and get his information. Then we stop Castellano before he starts a war. She looked at the townsfolk. But you follow my orders now, every single one, or a lot of people will die because of you. The sun set as they rode to Cedar Flats. Walsh's body lay in the desert, his secrets gone. But a bigger fight was coming, one that would test if these people could make up for their mistakes, and if enemies could work together against a worse threat. If you like this story, subscribe to the channel. The jail behind the saloon was just a wooden cage, but Swift Eagle sat inside it like a leader. His shoulder wound was crusted, Ruggiero's bandages still holding. His dark eyes watched everyone as they approached. When he saw her badge, he looked like he understood. You're not who they thought, he said in clear English, surprising the townsfolk. Neither are you, Ruggiero replied, taking the keys from Peterson. We need to talk about Castellano, the guns, and what's happening. As the cell door opened, Swift Eagle stood slowly, careful of his shoulder. Hayes stepped up. Federal Marshal Samuel Hayes. We heard you've been trying to tell us about illegal gun sales. Swift Eagle nodded. For 3 months, I've seen Castellano trick my people. He sells guns to young warriors, says settlers want to kill all Apaches. Then he tells settlers we're planning attacks. The plan was clear and awful. Castellano wasn't just selling guns. He was starting fights on both sides, making money while staying safe. How many guns? Ruggiero asked. Enough for every warrior in 3 tribes, Swift Eagle said. But worse, he's convinced our war chief, White Hawk, that soldiers are coming to ruin our sacred burial grounds with fake papers. Hayes swore quietly. White Hawk's been peaceful for 5 years. If Castellano's got him believing the army's attacking, he'll unite every tribe from here to Mexico. Swift Eagle agreed. They'll fight to the death. Castellano's plan was huge. A massive Apache attack based on lies, met by scared settlers with his guns. It would destroy both sides while he got rich. When? Ruggiero asked. Tomorrow at dawn, Swift Eagle said. White Hawk plans to hit the Army Supply Depot at Copper Canyon, thinking it's full of weapons for a war against us. 24 hours to stop a war that could kill thousands. What's really at Copper Canyon? Murphy asked nervously. Medical supplies and blankets, Hayes said. Aid for reservations. If White Hawk attacks, the army will think it's a full uprising, Ruggiero added. They'll send every soldier and hit back hard. Swift Eagle nodded. Castellanos made both sides think they're fighting to survive. Truth won't matter once people start dying. Ruggiero thought fast. They could warn the army at Copper Canyon, but that would only stop one fight. White Hawk would still believe the lies, and Castellano would start war elsewhere. They could try talking to White Hawk, but he wouldn't trust settlers, even with badges. There was a third choice, dangerous, maybe crazy, but possible. We take Castellano, she said. Tonight, before dawn, we catch him alive and make him confess to both sides. Hayes stared. His camp will have guards, and we don't know where he is. I do, Swift Eagle said. He moves often, but I've tracked him. Tonight, he's at Dead Horse Canyon, 5 miles north. 20 men guard him. 20 against how many of us? Ruggiero looked at their group. Hayes had 15 marshals. The townsfolk added a dozen, but most weren't fighters. Doesn't matter, she said. If we don't stop him tonight, this land will burn tomorrow. Doc Peterson stepped up with his medical bag. I'm coming. There'll be hurt people to help. One by one, the townsfolk agreed. Murphy, Martha, even. The blacksmith who wanted Swift Eagle dead. Fear had made them wrong before. Now shame and courage brought them together. Swift Eagle looked at Ruggiero. You'd trust them after what they did? She looked at the people who betrayed her but now wanted to fix it. Sometimes people need a chance to be better, she said. Hayes planned the attack, but Ruggiero thought about tomorrow. If they stopped Castellano, what then? Could she trust these people? Could she be Sarah Mitchell again? Did she even want to? As they rode to Dead Horse Canyon, maybe to their deaths, Ruggiero knew these hours would decide. More than a war. They'd decide who she was and who she'd become. Dead Horse Canyon felt spooky in the dark. Its rocky walls like giant tombstones. Ruggiero hid behind a boulder, watching Castellano's camp through a rifle scope. 23 men, not 20. Swift Eagle was close, but 3 extra guns could mean trouble. Castellano sat by the fire, his silver hair shining as he looked at maps and talked to his men. Seeing him made Ruggiero shake with anger. He killed Morrison, ruined her life, and now planned a war to kill hundreds. Tonight, it would end. Hayes whispered beside her. Marshals are ready on the north wall. Your townsfolk are on the south. Swift Eagles blocking the back exit. It was a solid plan for their mixed group and short time. But plans often fail when fighting desperate criminals like Castellano's men. Remember, Ruggiero whispered, we need Castellano alive to confess this war is a lie. Murphy nodded, checking his rifle again. Martha looked scared but ready. They weren't soldiers. but they were here to make things right. A bird call from Hayes signaled to start. Ruggiero stood, her badge catching the firelight. "Castellano, Federal Marshal Service. You're under arrest." The camp went wild. Men grabbed guns, ran for cover, shouted. But Castellano just smiled and stood slowly, hands empty, fearless. "Marshal Isabella Castellanos," he said smoothly. "I wondered when you'd come back." The fight exploded. Gunshots lit the canyon like lightning, echoing off the rocks. Ruggiero kept her rifle on Castellano, who didn't grab a weapon. "It's over," she yelled. "Walsh is dead. We know about the fake papers, the guns, everything." Castellano laughed sharply. "You think this is about money? This is about showing what you people really are, savages acting civilized." A bullet hit near Ruggiero's head, but she didn't move. "You're starting a war to prove a point?" "I'm showing the truth," he growled. "When Apaches and settlers kill each other tomorrow, everyone will see some people can't live together. Separation is the only way." His twisted idea hit her hard. This wasn't about money. It was about proving his hateful beliefs. He wanted the war to show he was right. The fight was turning, Hayes's marshals were winning, and even the townsfolk held strong. Castellano's men were losing, but he pulled a hidden gun, aiming at Swift Eagle and the rocks. "If I can't have my war," he said coldly, "I'll start it with one dead Apache." Ruggiero fired her rifle once. Castellano spun, his gun flying away, and fell, clutching his shoulder. "You shot me," he gasped. "I shot your gun arm," Ruggiero said, stepping closer. "You'll live to confess to both sides and watch them make peace instead of war." The last of his men gave up as marshals closed in. Swift Eagle came out unharmed, rifle ready. The townsfolk looked shocked. They survived a real fight. As dawn broke, Ruggiero tied Castellano's wound with his own shirt. He'd face real justice. Later, White Hawk won't trust white men's words, Swift Eagle said. But he'll believe Castellano's confession under Apache truth rituals. Hayes nodded. And the army will believe a federal investigation with proof. We can stop this. By noon, riders went to Copper Canyon and Apache land with news to stop the war. Castellano's confession and captured papers showed his full plan. That evening, riding back to Cedar Flats, Doc Peterson rode beside Ruggiero. "So, you going back to being our store clerk?" She looked at her badge, then at the townsfolk who fought with her. "Cedar Flats needs a sheriff," she said. "Someone who knows justice isn't us versus them. It's protecting everyone." Swift Eagle nodded. "A good sheriff needs to understand both sides." "You offering to be my deputy?" Ruggiero asked, smiling. "I'm offering to be a bridge," he said, "so this never happens again." As they reached the hill above Cedar Flats, the town glowed in the afternoon light. It didn't feel like a hiding place anymore, but a community that learned something big. Her badge shone, not a weight, but a tool for a better future. She came here hiding as Sarah Mitchell. Now she was returning as Marshal Isabella Castellanos, exactly who she was meant to be. If you liked the story, send a super chat to support more like it. Now, click the video on the screen for a story even better. With justice so strong and revenge so complete, you won't forget it.